Records both audio and video, is my understanding, but then I can easily just rip the audio from that.
Okay. If that's what you want to
So
try. Do you want to
if
try
I,
that?
yeah, so I just started the Skype recording. I've
Do you,
not recorded my on my end yet. I mean, I can do that real easily.
I was going to say, do you still want us to record? Excuse me.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I'd rather, yeah, because that's going to be better quality than what Skype puts out.
Okay.
But the Skype recording is going to allow me later to make sure that we're synced up properly. Does that make sense? It'll be like a
Sure.
guidepost where I can fit our little waveforms.
Excuse me.
So it
I,
just makes it easier for me.
that's
But
fine.
I'm assuming this though is not going to take up as much processing power as well. So hopefully I shouldn't run into any issues
Well,
with that. Um,
hmm.
so, but yeah, I took a little bit getting it all set up and then putting my kids down, and they both kind of had little mini freak out moments
Mini freak out moments.
after I had, yeah, um, yeah. Ollie was upset that he didn't change into PJs before, like as he was going to bed. He's like, "These are normal clothes." It's like basketball shorts and a t-shirt, which hey, I sleep
No.
time anyway. Um, And he was just upset that it wasn't PJs. So I'm like, dude, you can sleep in that. You're fine. He's like, no, I want pajamas.
You
And
should
and
say, yeah, just say, hey, Mr. Nate, you know, sleeps in gym shorts all the time, dude.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's then he'll get it. Then
Yeah, say
he'll
Mr.
understand.
Nate. Mr. Nate does that. That's you're fine. You're fine. Ollie, it's fine. Mr. Nate said it's fine.
Yeah, come on, come
I
on.
am 3 shots of vodka, gray
Hey,
olives vodka, and a can of peach Red Bull. And
okay,
here,
nice,
here I go.
nice. I'm I haven't, yeah, I haven't had anything to drink today. Drink. But now I just cracked open a Spaten Optimator.
Ooh,
Good.
they are heavy, heavy, heavy.
Yeah, I mean it's what he's 7.6%
Well, I was just like, I was
for
thinking
like a
like
normal beer. Yeah.
body, as far as
Yes.
like
Mm-hmm.
body and mouthfeel and all that. Like, it's a
Oh
very
fuck.
thick. Yeah, I really used to
So
like.
molasses.
Yeah, I really used to like Optimator, and then I got a case, and I think
Okay.
it turned me off of double box altogether.
Gotcha. I
I was like,
honestly don't know very many others. Well, just because I generally drink ales rather than lagers. But anyways.
dude, well, I mean, like, dude, like, Trogs, they're a PA brewery.
Okay. Yeah.
Troganator is a double bock.
Okay.
Like, you can find double box all over the place.
Yeah.
They're just, I mean, like, dude, like, the thing is, ales are sort of like the hot ticket right now. Like,
Well,
that's
it's
sort of
it's
like,
also easier. Well, okay, I'm from the South, so it's easier to make ales here. We don't
Well,
accept.
lagers are gross anyways, dude. Like, I mean, like, everybody always wants to tell me how good Yingling Lager is, and I'm like,
Hmm.
yo, Yingling Lager is trash beer.
Okay.
Like, and it's like,
I've never had it. I've heard it's a step. It's like the best trash beer you can get. So.
listen, it's Pennsylvania brewed. It's
Oh.
pre-prohibition. Um, like, there's a part of me that loves that beer, but
Mhm.
it's like, I like people are like, oh, Yingling, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
If you don't have anything else, then
I'm
cool.
like, I guess,
Yeah.
I guess. Like, I don't know. It's just it's never done anything for me. Like, I'm just kind of like, yeah, yeah, it's fine. Kind of tastes like has like a corn chip kind of taste at the end. I don't
Okay.
know.
Okay.
Like, I
Yeah.
think most lagers actually sort of taste like gym socks or corn chips at the end.
Gym socks.
Like, they have this weird funky taste at the end that I'm just like I can't get into.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
pilsners, lagers, all of it. I'm just like, yeah, there's something about like the malt profiles
Hmm.
that I'm just like, nope,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Because right. Yeah, it's a different kind of a lot. Well, mm, aren't a lot of them? Don't they use a lot of like corn or flaked corn? The wheat, was it a wheat beer? No, like a blonde or a excuse me. What's it called? Not a golden ale. There's another one. Maybe it is a blonde that I'm thinking of, but the lighter beers that I've tried to brew back when I brewed myself, it's been a couple years.
Ew.
It used like a flaked kind of corn in the mash bill as well
Yeah.
as the wheat.
Yeah. Blah.
I can appreciate it now. When I was first like getting into beer and all the different styles and stuff, I'd turn my nose up at lighter beers. Whereas now, yeah, I feel like I can appreciate them in their context. They're just not what I usually go
Dude,
for.
well, I mean, like, listen, I when it comes to beer, man, like, one, I don't drink a whole lot, and every
Mhm.
once in a while, like, I get like the craving. Like, I, I'm the kind of guy who goes to a bottle shop and I'll do like a pick six,
Yeah,
and it'll be
yeah,
like six
nice.
beers, and those will last me for like 2, 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Like,
wow.
if not longer, and
Mm.
then but like everyone, I also like every once in a while, I just like I totally want to slum it. So I'm like, yo, I need a sixer PBR. Um,
Okay. Yeah,
like
yeah.
I
There you
need
go.
like and PBR is like one of those things. Like I'll drink like a couple of them. I'm like, okay, like these are cool, and it's like light, crisp, refreshing, and then it's like I'm just kind of like, okay, and I'm done. But
Yeah.
it's like I paid $2 for the 6 pack, so I'm like, I don't feel bad about this.
Right.
I've been told that Jenny Cream Ale is like supposed to be. It's
Any
like a lighter
Hmm,
Genesee. Um, it's
okay.
like it's a cream ale. So
Yes. That might be what I was thinking of. Yeah, I've tried to do a cream ale before because that's one of those lighter styles too. I don't know like the distinctive of especially when you get in a light like I don't obviously wheat beers have more of like that wheat flavors, the more like biscuity kind of flavor to it.
yeah,
Um, but like blonde, I totally get yeah, blonde pilsner cream. I could not tell you the difference between those three.
I think
Maybe
it's
it's the
all
hops.
well. Pilsners or
They
lagers
can
are
be a bit
basically
hoppier. Pilsners are
pilsners.
lagers? Okay.
They're a lot in the lager family,
Gotcha.
but
Gotcha.
blondes and creams, like well, they're ales.
Right.
So,
Right.
but yeah, Pilsner, I'm pretty sure Pilsner is a type of lager or is
Gotcha.
basically in that family, that same like brewing
Yeah.
tree.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I've never brewed a lager. You basically can't here where I am unless you have, like a spare freezer. Because
yeah,
lagers cold ferment,
yep.
whereas ales are in warmer weather. So like that's why German so I'm drinking a Spaten Optimator, and that's why they do lagers. Like that's just the type of beers that they do. They're in Germany. It's cold. You just stick
Hmm.
it in the ice. Stick that bucket in the ice and it's fine. You'll be
And
good.
then you pull it out like a month later or whatever, and your mash is good to go.
Here. Yeah, I picked up we were at Costco and they had a 24 pack of assorted Spaten beers.
Mm.
So 12 of them were Oktoberfest, six were just the lager, and six of them were Optimator. And it was a
Spaten's
decent
really good.
price. It was like
Spaten's
23,
really good,
$24. Yeah,
dude.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
It's a
It's
very good beer.
yeah. Yeah, it's
It's
nice and clean.
it's one of the few well, like lager styles that I'm like, nope, I'll drink a spot and they're pretty
Yeah.
good. They're
Yeah.
pretty
It
good.
and it feels cool just because it is German, like
Hmm.
it just feels like, yeah, it's like traditional German beer. Like this is good. It's
I,
not
I'm sure there are Germans out there who are like, this is nothing, sleeves.
you know nothing.
You know nothing.
Nine, nine, nine. Sorry. Okay. Okay.
Go get the real beer, you stupid Americans. I don't know what that was. That was something.
Yeah. It,
Um,
that it was. It sure
that
was.
was the thing, dude. Talking about things and weird hot takes.
Mm?
So I posted in
Uh?
TRC today. Eh? 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 Oh, 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 oh.
Oh man. I like
A
that
little
show.
Tim the Toolman Allen. Hmm.
Taylor.
Um,
Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah, Tim the Toolman Taylor, Tim Allen in real
Is
life.
the yes,
Yes,
exactly.
that's
Exactly.
dude. I did not know. Just real quick
Mhm.
sidestep. I did not know he went to jail. He went to jail for like smuggling cocaine.
Are you serious?
Yeah, dude,
Oh,
look it up.
dang, I didn't
Like
know
he
that.
did time in prison because he was like big into narcotics for a little bit.
Wow.
And then like he kind of cleaned up his act but yeah, it's a really interesting story. Yeah, it's kind of
Oh,
one of the reasons I like him is that like this is a dude who made a mistake that could have ruined his life. And instead of like letting that be the thing that defines him, he just sort of like, put his head down, did his time, and like figured it out. And
wow.
that's cool. That's very cool.
Wow.
And some people are like, well, that's because he was white. And I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
You know what? I actually snoozed like a bunch of people on Facebook today
Okay.
because like the political stuff has me like ready
Yep.
to like
Yep.
just
Here we go again.
screech in freedom.
Yeah.
And I'm just not going to.
I mean, we
It's
got 2 more months and then the election. So these next 2 months are going to be crazy. Okay.
dude,
But
so bad.
then after that, well, depending on, no, no, it's
Dude,
going
it
to be
doesn't
crazy
matter.
until the
Okay, like
inauguration for sure.
let's let's just give it like 5 minutes. It doesn't matter who wins, it's going to be a nightmare on either side.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it does not matter because like if Trump gets reelected, and I think that's probably the most likely thing because I think a lot of
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
like, and this is just Nate's political like hot take. I
Hmm.
think a lot of people are put off. Biden's weak.
Hmm.
Kamala Harris is a freaking she's
Hypocrite.
bonkers.
Yeah.
I mean, she's like just a career politician, kind of like nasty piece of work.
Hmm.
And honestly, like I think like there are people who are like, I really don't like Trump, anybody but Trump, except for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And it's like,
Yeah.
and it's like one of those things. I was talking to a buddy at work, and I just said, like, listen, like, I don't really like Trump. I said, but I'll be honest, I feel like this is like, the reason Trump got elected the first time is because like the DNC threw their efforts behind Hillary, who
Yeah.
was the most unlikable candidate
Yeah.
could have possibly picked.
Yeah.
And this time it's like, hey, double down. Like, we're going to pick the most vanilla, generic, senile
Yeah.
white dude on the face of the planet
Yeah.
and run him against the living Cheeto. And like,
Right.
I'm just like, come on.
Hmm.
Like, you had so many good, like, interesting candidates who
Hmm.
I didn't even agree with on most of their platforms and stuff. But I was like, they are far more interesting
Hmm.
and like dynamic than vanilla Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yeah.
I don't know. I
They
just
they just wanted to cut the malarkey, you know?
but but I think either which way it goes, it's just going to be bad
Yeah, that's
because
true.
I
That's
think
true.
like and honestly and I was reading something and I kind of agree with the sentiment, but somebody I know on Facebook posted like you know they think that Al Barr, who is the Attorney General,
Mhm.
is pretty much waiting until after the election to declare BLM a terrorist organization, and I'm like, why wait?
Okay.
Why?
Yeah.
Because like,
Well,
dude, I mean, there's like footage of BLM leadership saying like, if we don't get what we want, we're going to destroy cities. And
yeah.
I'm kind of like, well, how about we start just throwing those people in jail and
Mhm.
saying, good luck?
Yeah.
Why are these people allowed to like continue to roam the streets and say like, no, like, here's the deal. You're making threats. That is a chargeable offense. You're done.
Mhm.
Like, congratulations. Try again.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's just like, but I see that and I'm just like, well, we'll see. We will see.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
all, you
Yeah.
know.
It's a weird time when we're living in when accepting that we live in a two-party system that that Trump is the younger, more quick-witted of the two major candidates. Like seriously, like how far down
Dude,
the sewer drain have we
we
gone?
have you ever
That
watched
he's the young
Community?
buck.
Have you ever watched Community?
I've watched a few episodes and I really enjoyed them, and I've heard it's a really good show, but I have never gone back.
Okay, so there's an episode where it's just like they discover like basically the darkest timeline episode.
Okay.
And it's like I honestly I feel like sometimes like we are just living in the darkest timeline. I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
what the like even
Yeah.
so going back to sort of what I posted something in TRG about how I thought
Yes.
like
Yeah.
exclusivity wasn't necessarily a bad thing. And I said,
Right.
in fact, like I really applaud Microsoft's, and I know that we're sort of getting into like the Brohang proper kind of stuff,
Hmm.
but I really applaud Microsoft's picking up a Bethesda. I'm
Hmm.
like, that is a very cool move.
Yeah.
And it's like now here's the thing. I think there's a couple things about that. One, I don't think Microsoft is going to be nearly as um like closed-handed, close-fisted
Yeah.
with their uh exclusivity.
Exclusives. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I think probably what we're going to see from Microsoft for the most part is just I think so far in a lot of ways they're demonstrating that they're much more willing to play ball. Period.
Hmm.
But I think what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot more of like limited window exclusives. Like if you want to
Hmm.
play it the first year, for 6 months, whatever, and then it'll go like to general release.
Right.
Because like, dude, like they just like because here's kind of going into it, like, and I'll sort of touch it. I don't think they're really all that interested in selling boxes.
Hmm.
I just like their marketing, like now that Xbox Series S thing, which the naming convention on the Xbox is terrible, but that's like, but that Series
That's
S,
also nothing new.
no, it's not. It's like, hey, we've got the original Xbox, and then it's like the 360. Okay, that's an interesting take. The one,
One.
okay,
One
that's the
X.
thing. And then the
Xbox
X1
One X.
X. And now it's the Xbox Series X, which some people are calling the XX,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
X
It
SEX.
just
You
it
know,
doesn't.
it's
It,
it's like awful naming
yeah. It does
conventions.
not roll off the tongue. And
But
okay, I think we can also, sorry, not to derail us
yeah,
completely. I think we can both agree that the names of video game consoles are not generally very good. They all sound pretty stupid by themselves.
I
Like,
see. I disagree. I think
okay,
actually, like, I
okay.
really like the PlayStation, and I like the PlayStation because and now I know a little bit of history, but it was
Right.
basically a riff on workstation because
Workstation,
there was
right. Yeah.
the
Hmm.
Sony workstation, which
Hmm.
was the infrastructure and the architecture that they used to build the PS1 or the OG
Okay.
OG PlayStation. They're like, let's just we'll use some of this and make a PlayStation. Um,
Yeah.
instead of so, and that was sort of like but it's none of them are great.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. They're hard. So I get it's hard to name, but yeah, I think Xbox is always done. Like just even that Xbox just sounds dumb by itself if
well,
you
do you
just
know where
know
that comes
what it
from?
was.
It was supposed to be the DirectX
DirectX. Yeah,
Xbox. Yep.
DirectX box. Yeah.
Hmm.
But even then it's like you can't think of anything else, just a box. Just whatever. What I mean, whatever, whatever.
Well,
It's now it's cemented into vocabulary, so it doesn't
when
sound as dumb, but
when they were sort of like they were like actually their marketing team was like really trying to avoid using Xbox, and
okay.
all their focus groups are like, no, I actually kind of like Xbox, and so the marketing's
Makes me
going,
want a Mountain Dew.
no, we don't like this, and everybody's like, but we do. Um,
Hmm.
anyways,
Well, there you go. Yeah,
so
so aside from names, yeah.
I but looking back at this exclusivity thing, like there's so many people I think that just have like there was a guy who's like basically I don't like that I'm being forced to choose. And I was kind of
Mhm.
like that's kind of the point. And then another guy used this like really elaborate analogy. It was like
Okay.
basically like if they commodified all the aspects of a cheeseburger. And I'm like, one, like his analogy, and I didn't reply to him because I was just like, I was kind of over it at that point. But I wanted
Mhm.
to say, one, your analogy is garbage. It's bunk. Okay. Because it's like you're saying, well, if I want a cheeseburger, I don't want to have to buy a bajillion different parts to actually have a cheeseburger. I'm like, you're looking at it the wrong way. These are restaurants. Okay. Like if you want to have an analogy there, it's like Xbox is Pizza Hut or Taco Bell or whatever, and Sony or let's even like class it up. Xbox is Chick-fil-A, PlayStation is Five Guys. You're not going to go to freaking Five Guys and say, "I want a chicken sandwich."
Hmm.
Like they are two totally different environments that specialize in two totally different things and bring you two. Now there are similarities, and they're both fast food.
Hmm.
You can get fries with just about everything. You can
Hmm.
get like soft drinks of very, but like they are two different experiences. And so I think even but it was just like I don't know, dude. And it's like sort of, and you and I have sort of like this has been, I think, a long sort of running conversation for us. But I think
Hmm.
like what I am noticing, and I need to be very careful here because it's very easy to sort of like sort of look out into the world and see everything that's wrong with it and be
Hmm.
like what we're seeing is that a lot of Americans, like we're seeing sort of the follies of basically the political idolatry on both sides.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
we're sort of seeing like that play out because like the left is
Sure.
having a meltdown because basically like their god got dethroned for like the worst possible candidate. And
Hmm.
then like the right is like this is our guy. And so that
Hmm.
it's like they're functional like it's
Yeah. So he can do no wrong
he can
when
do
he's
no
like
wrong.
clearly a terrible human being. Yeah.
Bingo. But anyways, uh but then I think too, like we're seeing, and it's just like it's something that I'm very aware of right now,
Yeah.
and I'm seeing it in like sort of just like in just sort of like the idolatry of entertainment, and people are like, I want to buy one console and play whatever I want, however I want, the way that I want, give it to me now. And I
Hmm.
don't care what the limitations are. I don't care what the restrictions are. You need to give me what I want. And I'm going, oh my. Like, I'm like, oh, children, oh, child, go
Hmm.
sit down. Like, and I'm not being super, I think, charitable in maybe my evaluation. And this is just sort of like this is not an individual that I'm sort of caricaturing. Is that
Hmm.
like the overall sort of like what I'm seeing is people are like, I want what I want, and you are going to give it to me. And
Hmm.
I'm going, oh no. Oh no, like there's a part of me that's like, with some of these people, like if they were in my church or if I'd be like grabbing them by the scruff of the neck and saying, we're going to have a conversation because you are six different kinds of out of line and your priorities are super jacked up, pal. Like, but I just think like I said, what we're seeing sort of is the sort of the outworkings of, basically uh, an idolatrous entertainment
Hmm.
industry where
Hmm.
even within the church, it's like dude, it's video games. So it's like this should be like I don't know. Like I just kind of look at it and like this should not be like a controversial thing at all. But people are like
Hmm.
bending themselves out of shape over this thing. It's like it's not fair, and I'm going, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I just and I'm not saying that anybody in that particular thread that I mentioned did that
Hmm.
particularly. I'm
Yeah.
just saying as a general rule, like kind of what I've seen is just this like, you know, Sony needs to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm kind of like, no, they don't. They can do whatever they want. It's like, they're gonna do what they want when and what they think is gonna get them money. And just like Microsoft is doing the same thing. And I'm like, and it's okay because you
Yeah.
don't need to play everything. And it's
Yeah.
okay for you to have to make
Hey.
decisions and maybe say, like, hey, this thing isn't for me right now.
Hmm. Heyo.
Oh,
Heyo.
hot take
That.
there, people.
Yeah, that'll roll right into my thoughts on next gen in general. But I do think it's interesting too, stepping back a little bit, trying to see kind of the forest for the trees, and how there's like pros and cons to both sides. I
Hmm.
feel like the extremes of both sides are can be toxic, and I don't
Oh,
mean
yeah.
to be like really cynical, but it's funny because like on the one hand you get this total like fanboyism of just like, oh, my console is better, my ecosystem is better because of these exclusives, and that can be toxic because people, PCMR, I don't know, Nintendo fanboys and Sony ponies and whatever. Um, and people can just be turds that way. But then yeah, the other side is like I'm getting these games taken away from me. Like what the heck? And that's it. That's it. Is it's viewed as and I didn't read your entire thread. I saw like maybe an hour after you posted it, and it was funny how quick, like, because maybe it's just because I know you and I was giving you the benefit of the doubt. I don't know, but what you originally posted, where you were like, this is pretty cool. This is pretty interesting. It was very positive, and like almost immediately it went negative with the comments. That's what
Did
I saw.
you
That's what I saw, and
did
that's
you
why
see
I
the
was
one
like,
guy who was like, I disagree?
yeah,
And
and
I
then
was
didn't reply anything. Yeah, it was funny.
my response to him was like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, I'm not dignifying you with any more of a response than this clown.
It
Like
just,
everybody
well,
else I engaged a little bit.
mm,
I was like, yeah,
yeah,
like, hey, I get it. But it was like that dude, I was just like, okay.
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. No, so overall, I think like it's interesting because you go too far on either side and it gets toxic.
yeah.
So, and it's almost a sense of like entitlement, right? Like this past generation of consoles, yeah, Bethesda has, Bethesda's always been multi-platform. Okay, but like it doesn't promise you anything. Like
Well,
it
and
just,
that's yeah,
you're not entitled to what they make
that's the
because
thing
you own
that
a
like I
system.
I think is really kind of like disturbing in a lot
Mhm.
of ways is like the people who are freaking out about this. I'm just going like, dude, like it'll be all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you're not promised this thing.
Mm. 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 Yes, and
Why
th
like why is that so hard?
there we go. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That is the core of my, as I've thought about the next gen, and we wanted to have this conversation, particularly because it doesn't really fit into, backlogs. Although part of my answer actually has to do a lot with my backlog and the fact that I have lots of games to play and
Well,
I don't need any more games.
it
But
does have reflection on our backlogs in a sense because it's like sort of like eventually these things will sort of
will accrue more
will become pressing
backloggery.
issues.
Certainly it does. Um, but that is actually kind of the core of why I am not too. Okay. I feel like I have to preface some things. Okay. I've never bought a console during its release window. Okay. So I totally get I am not the audience for the new consoles. I
Hmm.
don't own a 4K TV. So I am not the audience for next gen because that's kind of the things that are promised, or better graphics, better frame rate, things like that. I have a PC, but my monitors aren't 144 hertz refresh rate. Like, so I'm not that I don't notice graphics, just that it's not always a selling point for me. So I totally get, you can just push me aside and push my thoughts and my opinions aside. That's totally fine.
No, no.
But
I'm gonna say, like, listen. If you are listening to this, you are free to disagree with Josh, but
yes.
to disregard him, why are you even listening to this at that point? Like, stop that. Don't do
Well,
that.
thank you. Thank you for having my back.
I got you, homie.
But yes, so this idea was planted in my brain actually before the start of the previous generation. I watched a YouTuber and he said something that I was like, oh, that's a really good point. And he said, you should buy a console because you want to play the games.
Hmm.
You don't buy a console based on promises. And for the most part, that is how I purchase my game. And that's why I'm so far behind on the new and shiny. The Switch was probably the closest to the release date that I'd ever purchased a console. So maybe like a year and a half into it, right? If
Hmm.
you might remember
It's
better than I
something. It was
do.
something like that.
And in that case, there were a couple. So I totally get, like, I could be hypocrite. There's part of this that's hypocritical as well because I was caught up with. I wanted a Switch, and I actually was able to get it for a very, very good price, more than $100 off because of my wheeling and dealing, and it was brand new. Because with the Switch, I don't feel very confident in purchasing it secondhand, whereas like virtually every other console I own has been secondhand.
It-
So,
well, just and again, brief aside.
mhm.
Like, man, well, and it's like shared with you guys in the Discord. My freaking
Ugh,
dock broke.
yeah,
Like my
that's
dock,
super
like it
lame.
was fine, it was fine, it was fine, and then it was like I've been playing, and we'll talk about this later. Hades from
Yeah,
Supergiant.
yeah.
Oh my
It seems right
goodness.
up your alley, dude.
Oh, it's like
Super giant and it looks like Diablo.
it
So,
kind of is, but it's a lot smarter. Uh,
mm,
but
mm,
it's not nearly as fleshed out. But I won't.
yeah.
No, I like that
We'll
game
get there. Yeah.
so much right now. Like
Nice.
it is stupid how much I like that game.
Mm.
Anyways, uh, but I don't get excited about games all that often,
Hmm.
but this one, Josh, has my attention.
It,
Um, it's very good.
yeah. That's
Um,
awesome. That's
it-
awesome. So you need like a bumper sticker to throw on your car. I love Hades. You know, right?
uh,
Just
probably not.
tattoo it on your forehead. I love
Nah,
Hades.
not that much. Not that much. But yeah, I think going back to sort of what you were talking about though
Hmm.
is in a lot of ways I and I've actually sort of gotten off of the day one. And we've talked about this,
Oh,
I think.
okay. Hmm.
I don't think I'm going to be a day one
Hmm.
PS5 adopter. Like I'm
Hmm.
not even trying to get a pre-order right now. And it's
Okay.
mostly because I'm well, we're doing the whole we're pursuing pregnancy and the
Yeah.
IUI stuff, and that costs money. And
Yeah.
like I'm just kind of like my resources can go to better things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't have a ton of debt, but we have a little bit of debt, and like
Hmm.
we've been talking about it. We want to eliminate some of that. And once we eliminate some of that, maybe I'll open myself up. That and I really just don't like the white on black. Like maybe this is like the dumbest thing in the world, but
It's a
I
thing.
r- I really though for me though uh it is the idea of being able to play PS4 games
Hmm.
at better performance rates
Hmm.
that I'm just like I'm down because
Okay.
like if you can like tighten up those experiences like Borderlands 3 I haven't gone back to that pretty much. I put it down a while ago.
Hmm.
Really liked the game, but because of like performance issues on my base model or my slim PS4, I was kind
Hmm.
of like, yeah, you know what? Like, I'm just like, and it wasn't terrible, but it's like every once in a while it just like bogged down. And
Okay.
and
Hmm.
it's because it has to do with the way that they render the menu.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that. Yeah. It's
okay.
like an
So
in-game. Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's an in-game. It actually physically renders the menu.
Hmm.
And a lot of that has to do with the idea that they are trying to sort of borrow from like they're trying to sort of be keep players a little more honest. I don't know. Like in
Okay.
basic like if you were to jump off a cliff and like pause and like
Hmm.
you know get out of the game or whatever, like it, basically it's to keep people from like kind of being I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the actual ideology, but there's
Hmm.
some stuff that I've read that suggests that a lot of that is like meant to sort of encourage certain things in game. Anyways,
Yeah.
neither here nor there. But the biggest reason I was like looking at PS5 is like, well, I can play the games that I have for it that are really kind
Hmm.
of like don't run well or like kind of run okay. Like
Hmm.
they'll be like super snappy and responsive. And I'm like, oh, I'm down. Like,
Yeah.
but I'm also sort of like, I mean, even talking about the burnout and stuff, like I was just kind of like, you know what? Like, I'm okay with like just like pumping the brakes on games in general for a while
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
really like getting like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah, that's a good point too. I mean, if yeah, wanting your games to run better, and then also obviously, we say hashtag backlogs and finances. totally looking towards the finances end of the spectrum. I mean, like the landscape right now for next gen, we've got the Xbox has their Series S for 300, their Series X for 500. Those are two different consoles. The X is actually more powerful than the S. The S does not have a disk drive. And
Yeah.
then over on the PS5 side,
Well,
you've
it
got
doesn't have a
yep,
disk drive, and it is a slightly gutted machine. It
right.
is not nearly as powerful as the X.
As the X, right? Yes. And then also with their, tying in their games, they're going to be released on PC as well. So there's that, that's wrapped into it as well.
Hmm.
So that's on the Xbox side. As far as PS5, we've got kind of your, I don't recall what they call them, but basically you've got a $400 box
It's
that does not
digital
have
only.
PS. Yep, and then a $500 one that has an optical drive. Same exact box, your same system, same console. It's just whether or not you want to be able to use physical games. That's an extra $100 on top of
Hmm.
there.
Yeah.
So, now, I mean, the types of games that I play. So here's my opinion, basically, on the landscape itself. Is that Xbox has some interesting stuff going on. Their Game Pass, I think, is a crazy good deal. But because I like physical games, I'm not opposed to a Netflix like thing, which is what Game Pass back basically is. And especially for the price that they're giving it, that they're putting it at. That seems like a very good value proposition. I have a PC, so I don't need a new Xbox console.
Yeah.
And I'm not huge on Xbox exclusives in general as much anyway. So because of my backlog, primarily because of my backlog, I'm not very interested in that because I know as soon as I subscribe to that service, then I'll have this like low level stress of like, oh, I should be playing Game Pass games because I'm paying for
Hmm.
them and I'm not
Yeah.
gonna have, because of that, I already have enough. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty much not everyone's in that situation, so that's super cool. I think they have some interesting stuff going on, especially well, Wes talked about that. We'll talk about what he had to say. I have a lot of the same thoughts as Wes did. So we'll talk about that later. In terms of PS5, um, the issues that I have is that, well, one, I like physical games. Okay. So I would be more inclined to get one with an optical drive than an all digital edition.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh
and
yeah.
in the things that they're promising for next gen, like there's some cool stuff under the hood and potential for PS5. Some of the games look really beautiful. I'm not putting that down at all. But 90%, what feels like 90% of the games that they've shown off so far are 2021. The games that
Hmm.
they are releasing on launch date, there's Spider-Man Miles Morales, which, hey, I really dig Spider-Man. It's really cool. This is a shorter experience. Okay. It's at a slightly cheaper price point. Okay. It's also being released on PS4. So there's that.
I wonder if
Uh,
that's going to be like that's going to be a compromised experience though. Like it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
it's going to be similar to Shadow of Mordor,
Okay.
where there was a PS3 version of that game
Hmm.
available that basically they just ripped the Nemesis system out, like
Oh,
in
wow.
order for that game to run, which is like that's like the defining
Yeah, that's
mark
kind of
of
the
that
point.
game. And they're just like,
Yeah.
if you want to play it on PS3, well, yeah, yeah, it's basically gutted.
Interesting.
And
Oh, I
so
did not
I
know that.
I think it's probably going to be like a much more compromised sort of game
Hmm.
on the PS4 version. Like, and it's like full disclosure, my intent is when it comes to the Miles Morales game, like I will wait until I can play it on PS5. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just kind of like, I'm like, but I mean, yeah, but yeah. Well, and so like looking at what sort of like the problem is with the PS5 stuff, right? Is there's nothing confirmed outside of Miles Morales.
Hmm. Oh,
Um,
there's one other.
is
There's one
Ratchet and
other.
Clank? Oh no,
I,
Demon
I
Souls.
Demon. Yes, that's the
Demon
one,
Souls
and that one looks beautiful.
looks
Okay,
awesome.
I've been playing, for this episode that we'll be recording here. I've been playing some
Bloody
Bloodborne.
hell,
It. My goodness, I love it. So I'm stoked for a Demon Souls remake. But also, It's a remake of a decade-old game,
dude,
and
but
they're charging you $70.
no, it's you're saying it's a remake, but like it's a complete overhaul.
Okay,
It's it's
okay, but I mean, so was Shadow of the Colossus. Okay, it's an overhaul, yes, but it's still the same game. It's not a new entry. It is a beautiful, well done remake of an old
well,
game.
I okay, and this is like I think like this is like you and I differ on this, but I
Uh huh.
think like this is indicative of the new pricing model. It's like
Mm-hmm.
these things are expensive.
Yeah.
Like they put a
Yeah.
bunch of money into giving this thing. Like it's basically they took like the old rusted out like vet or Mustang they found in the junkyard. They ripped it down to the frame and they basically rebuilt it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like that is an expensive prospect. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, $70 like for the assets that they put into that game. Okay. Like I'm not paying that.
Mm-hmm.
But like
Right. Right.
I think they're totally justified in
Mm-hmm.
charging that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's like that
Since
and I
since
think
that's oh yeah, sorry.
I was just gonna say I think the $70 price point is more than fair for a AAA game.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
for the
think
for
it
the
is more than
new
fair.
systems, for what they're like, because like this is the time to do it business
Mhm.
wise, is like new generation of consoles. Okay, we're gonna bump that up $10. That's totally understandable from a business standpoint. I'm not arguing about that.
You're
No,
not even
like
mad.
you said, right. I'm not now, I mean,
He's not even mad.
right. I normally get my games used anyway, but I occasionally I'll buy some new Switch games. Um, but what I'm saying, and I'm just illustrating a point here, is like day of when you first buy that shiny PS5. And this again, my opinion here is if I were to go and purchase a PS5, okay?
Mhm.
Now, I'm heavily weighted towards the one with the optical drive because I want my
Yeah,
physical
same here,
games.
same here, same here.
Um, but even if I was trying to save some money, then that's 400 for the console, and then Demon Souls is another 70. So you factor in tax, and
You're
that's a
not walking out of
minimum
there without $500. Right.
500 bucks
Hmm.
for a decade old game. Again, I get it. It's
I
beautiful. It looks great, but I'm saying their launch lineup, because there are
hmm.
some great promises. Okay, don't get
I'm
me
just
wrong.
like, dude, I just really take umbrage with you. Like you're like, it's a decade old game. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, it is the original, but this new one is new. And yes,
Yes.
it's going to borrow from that same game. Like it's going to be readily identifiable to fans of the first one.
Hmm.
But it's just like, dude, like I don't know. It's like they're probably going to clean up the controls a little bit. They're
Yeah.
probably going to tighten it up. Like it's good. I, I'm just like, I think when it comes to remakes, like not remasters, but remakes in general,
Hmm.
there has to be like. I get where you're saying we can't treat it like an absolutely brand new game, but I'm also like, dude, like and this is coming from like I loved okay, going back to Shadow of the Colossus for a second.
Hmm. Yeah.
I loved Shadow of the Colossus on PS2. I loved it on PS3.
Hmm.
I really loved it on PS4 because like
Hmm.
all of a sudden like the graphical fidelity, that was almost a brand new experience. Like even for me. Like and I'm
Hmm.
just saying like as someone who played like all the iterations and who loved all of them, I was
Hmm.
like this thing it had like yeah, like I knew all the story beats. I knew like the gameplay. Like it's like the world was sort of old to me, but like seeing Agro and Wanderer and like or Wander and like just like that
Hmm.
whole like that it was like I don't think that can be understated.
Hmm.
Like how big a difference and like how important that actually was.
Hmm.
And so it's like for Demon Souls, I'm like, I get it. Yes, it is a 10-year-old game in the sense that like the original infrastructure and architecture and everything else is over a decade old. But like in a lot of ways the game was rebuilt from the ground up. And so
Okay.
it's like okay, like it's like you have a house that you really like, right?
Hmm.
And you get 100, and then just for the sake of like 100 years down the line, like man, it's not holding up really
Yeah.
the way you want it to. So you go, you get the blueprints, you build a new house. You're not going to get mad because like somebody's going to be like, well, this new house is worth more because of X, Y, and it's
Hmm.
got
Yeah.
new, and it actually benefits from all the advances in technology and stuff, but it's still found that like it in a lot of ways it's like the newer and shinier. Like I'm just saying like I don't know. Like that's just the one thing where I'm like, well, I mean, I get, and again, I'm not paying $70 for that thing.
Right.
Like I'm like by the time I'm even thinking about that game, it's
Hmm.
probably going to be well under that price point.
Yeah.
But I am very much of the opinion where I'm like, yeah, they're totally justified in that. Like, and it's like,
Hmm. And
but
I'm not saying that they're not justified. What I'm saying is this does not make me want to pick up a PS5.
oh
That's
no,
what
I know.
that's what I'm saying is that the value proposition of a $500 console for a remake of a game that looks great. Like I am excited. I'm saying Demon Souls is the thing that I'm most excited for. Not to say that I don't want to play Miles Morales or I don't want to play what no Horizon Zero Dawn, the
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 Horizon,
second one.
that's launch window. Ratchet and Clank is
No, it's
launch
not.
window.
No,
Horizon
it's not.
Zero.
It's not till no, it's not till 2021,
I
right?
thought that was launch window. Well, I
I'm
think
pretty sure
I
it's
heard early
2021.
2021.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, we
Quite
could be wrong
possibly.
on this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to fact check us on this.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that that one's not till next year, but that one is also coming to PS4.
But dude, it's coming out. It's like these things are coming out mid-November,
Yeah.
and it's like
Yeah.
that's basically the kickoff of holiday season.
Hmm.
So you've got a month and a half before you're into quarter one of 2021.
Yeah.
So it's like you got a month and a half, and I think okay. So let's get back to the actual meat of this thing for a second, and we're
The,
we're like comparing and contrasting the two different models and like sort of what they're
hmm.
offering for that initial
Yeah.
launch thing. A couple of thoughts. I really actually like the Xbox Series S plan. Like
Hmm.
I love the fact that they're like, you know what, $300, or you can pay, was it like 30 or 20, 25
25 a
bucks?
month. Hmm.
25 a month for 2 years. And when you do all the math and all the services, you actually save like $50 is what
Hmm.
like someone said
Okay.
um, that way when you look at it long term.
Yeah.
I
But that gets you both the console and Game Pass for
and
25 a
and
month.
Game Pass now includes EA Access or EA
Right.
Origin or
Yep.
whatever, and
Yep.
and so it's like there's a heck of a value sort of being pumped
Right.
into that thing.
Yep.
And I
Totally.
have to like,
Totally.
and I think that's just a baller move on
Hmm.
Microsoft's part.
Hmm.
I think the X, I think in a lot of ways, like the X, like they are just not, I don't, and this is why I sort of hold to the fact that I don't think they're really concerned with selling boxes.
Yeah.
Like the Series S is going to fly off the shelves at $300. The thing's going to fly off the shelves because it's a next gen console, and I threw up air quotes there.
Hmm.
Even though it's a slightly beefier Xbox One,
Hmm.
basically takes advantage of
Yeah,
some tech.
but it's more powerful than the Xbox One X, right?
Yeah,
Isn't it? Yeah.
it's
Okay.
it's a little more powerful than
Yeah.
the Xbox One X, but it's still not as powerful as the Series X.
Yeah.
But I think like the thing is like there I think what we're going to see, and you and I have talked about this, and this is not unique to me, but I think what we're going to see is Microsoft really lean into this games as a service model,
Hmm.
like for like
Yeah.
subscription, not games as service, but games as a subscriptive model.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm not sure that that's like long term sustainable.
Hmm.
At the, like, here's the thing: people are like, "Oh, well, I've got it locked in for 2 years at $25
Hmm.
a month, blah 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 blah," and I'm like, "You're gonna like after that 2 years, I think they're gonna turn the heat up on that
Yeah.
sub price, or they're just gonna start turning up the and like you'll be grandfathered in." Because you're at that, like, they can't just be like, well, we're upping our services, so now you're paying more. I mean, there's probably some sort of like end user some EULA or some
Yeah,
sort of like
yeah,
contractual
they'd get
stuff
some
that.
huge backlash if that were the case. Yeah, for
But
sure.
I think what they're gonna say is like, oh, we're gonna see the prices for those subs crank up, like
Hmm.
because I
Yeah.
think like the longer this thing progresses, the less profitable it's gonna be,
Hmm.
especially just because it's a lot of money sort of over a long period of time.
Right.
But I mean, PlayStation Sony has basically said that they don't think this is a viable long-term model, and that's why they're not going to like be leaning into it that hard. I mean,
Oh, interesting.
I was actually reading like a press release, or not, maybe not a press release, but it was like an article where it's basically Sony's like, "Nah, this we don't think that this is a viable long-term model." Um,
Even though they have the PlayStation Plus collection or whatever that they just announced,
well, the
which is
PlayStation
basically the
Plus,
same thing.
no, the PlayStation Plus collection is if you have a PlayStation 5 and an active PS Plus account,
Mm,
you have access to like these games. So it's
okay.
nothing like it's not in addition. It's like yeah, PS Plus, which you kind of need to play online anyways. You
Hmm.
get access to these 20 games or whatever it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
And it's not like they are really like I think PS Now they're trying to leverage PS Now as a bit of a competition to the X Cloud service.
Hmm.
But I I think we're seeing two totally different philosophies going forward. And I
Yeah.
really think like Xbox and Microsoft are really games like Xbox will be a platform and there will
Hmm.
be boxes that you can buy that you can play Xbox games on, and I'm throwing air
Hmm.
quotes in. But I honestly think they just want to be on every platform. They like I would not be surprised within the next I would not be terribly surprised within the next 5 or so years where you see some sort of service where, I mean, they're already doing it on PC.
Hmm.
Like I think Nintendo like some sort of partnership with like Game Pass with the Switch is like the
Yeah.
next step.
Yeah.
And then after we see it cross into the Switch, they're just gonna be like, well, we don't care. And the only thing that would stop them from partnering, like putting that service on Sony, is
Hmm.
Sony's like, no. And Sony's like,
Right.
no, we'll
Right.
take your money too.
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know,
I mean,
um,
yeah, imagine like an X Cloud subscription for Switch for $30 a month,
mhm.
something like that. Like that's a crazy proposition because there are tons of people who own Switches who don't care for the rest of the consoles. You know what I mean? Like Nintendo has a different, not an entirely different audience, but they do appeal to a younger market,
Nintendo
they
fans,
and
Nintendo
nostalgia.
fans are purists in a
They're
lot of way.
diehards. They're lifers.
Well, it may be, but I think like in a lot of them, like what I've seen, and just like and again, I use the term purist, that
Okay.
these are people who just they don't want a lot of other stuff in their video games. They
Okay.
just want good video games.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like the thing is, like Nintendo has a heck of a track record there, man.
Hmm.
Like, dude, there's a reason like Mario and Link and like these mainstay flagship titles are iconic.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Even so, even that you got people who have never played video games in their life can sort of kind of remember like Yankee Dang and Zerlda. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
Zorlda.
Zorld.
What is the legend of Zorlda? I was like, oh, that one's close. You're close.
Zorld. What if
Zorlda.
Zorlda was a girl?
What if Zerlda was a girl? Exactly. Um, but so going back to that,
Hmm.
so I I think like the thing is the X isn't going to do great. The X will do fine, but its numbers will be comparable to the Xbox One and its various iterations.
Hmm.
Like the Series S is going to be a behemoth. Like I think that thing is going to hit like Wii numbers. It's 300
Really?
bucks, dude.
You think
I
so?
300 bucks with Game
Yeah.
Pass included. Yeah. Like that is dumb.
Yeah, but
Like
Switch is $300. Like I don't think it's gonna do as good as Wii. No way.
okay, well, maybe not Wii cuz Wii was like I think it's
I don't
going to
even think it'll
be
be as good as Switch. Because I think it.
I think dude like cuz it's going to be more powerful than Switch.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
it's from day one, the access the library it's going to have is massive.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and that's one of the biggest weaknesses of the Switch is that no,
Hmm.
the Switch has a sizable library now, but most of it's
Hmm.
like trash from the arcade, or it's like like there's a lot of like junk
On the eShop,
software
for
on
sure.
the eShop.
For sure.
Like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
stuff that like there's maybe like 50 must play games
Yeah.
for the Switch. Whereas Microsoft, like you've got all of the 360 and like anything that's been backwards compatible, you're going to be able to download or whatever
Hmm.
using that Game Pass stuff. Like, dude, I'm telling you, like, I really think the Series S is going to. I think it might dominate at least up
Hmm.
front. Like,
See, I would think
I
they
think
would
it's
have
good
to change their marketing though. They would have to say like, you remember Xbox when you were younger, like you can play those games on Series S now.
because
Get it
well,
now
you'll
for
be able to play.
25
You'll
bucks a
be able
month.
to play new releases too at maybe a
Right.
slightly less like at a slightly less optimal sort of experience like
Yeah.
this it's a box like dude I think more than anything it has to do with the price point. It's
Hmm.
$300. It's
Right.
$300 for a next gen console that looks way better than anything the Switch does.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
with
Oh yeah.
basically a built-in library for you're gonna
Mm.
need the online subscription anyways. It's I mean, dude, I think that thing is gonna like I think that thing is going I think up front, just at the like the first sort of leg of the console race,
Hmm.
the Series S is gonna put Microsoft in the game in a big way.
Okay.
Like it's
Yeah.
it's actually a legitimate threat to Sony. Whereas I don't think the Series X is like the Series X isn't doing anything really all that spectacular. And I'm not trying to like poo-poo that. I think
Hmm.
it's an impressive machine, but it's just it's more power. That's it,
Right. Right.
And it's like so what I really would have and I was actually talking to Steven Gutierrez, um,
Hmm.
one of the other TRG admins, and we were talking a little bit about. I would have loved to have seen Sony come out and be like, "Yeah, Sony Digital is $300,"
Yeah.
and just watch them drink Microsoft's milkshake.
Hmm.
Like I would
Right.
have killed to see that.
Yeah.
But even at $400, like, and I think here's the thing: at $500, you're getting the media reader, like the physical with the
Hmm.
optical drive. At 400, you're getting basically the same machine, sans optical drive.
Right.
Um, dude, like it. That's I don't know. Like that's not that bad a deal, in my opinion. Like I think I, honestly, I'm more in the Sony camp.
Hmm.
Period. I like the exclusives better. Now I'll tell you what. The one thing is with the acquisition of Bethesda today
Hmm.
does shake some things up for me because
Yeah.
Bethesda owns several of my favorite properties. I
Yeah.
could give a rip less about the Elder Scrolls, but if you tell me that Doom and the Dishonored franchise, especially if they get like good games, are going to be Microsoft exclusives,
Hmm.
I might have to build a PC just so I can play those games.
You mean you don't want to immediately rush out and buy a $300 Series S?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to like I'm no. I'm not. But I'm just saying
Yeah.
I think looking at like the holiday season,
Hmm.
like $300 mom and dad can get that for the kids. It's the new Xbox.
Yeah.
I think that thing's going to like sell like gangbusters, especially when it's, you're looking at $300 and you don't have to buy them anything because there's going to be a bunch of stuff like that's going to just be available day one to anybody who owns Game Pass. So it's
Yeah.
like all of Microsoft's first party stuff is going to be available day one on Game Pass. So I'm
Hmm.
like, they've got it. Like, dude, that's a heck of a machine.
Yeah.
Like, just like
Oh
in the
yeah.
sense that like that is some. I don't like this is I'll be honest. I am not super thrilled about monthly installment stuff. Like,
Right.
there's something about that that spooks me in a way that I'm just like, oh no, I don't like that. Don't
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
Um, I
Yeah.
mean,
It means I don't own anything. You know
yeah,
that
yeah,
I don't like that.
through and through. Like you don't own anything on that box. You're basically just leasing that box
Hmm.
um,
Right.
for 2
Right.
years.
And
Um,
for $25 a month, I think that's a fair price to
yeah.
just lease a huge library of games. So I'm not knocking what Xbox is doing. I'm just not interested because of my current situation with video games. I have a bunch of them
Oh,
to
dude.
play.
Yeah. Like I
I
mean,
don't
like
need that in my life. That's what
if
I'm saying. It's
I'm
too
looking
good.
at it, I'm saying like it's like for yeah. Hold on. Yeah. Yes. I texted you back. Yes, I did. I'm looking at my response right now. Well, I did text you back. So, all right. I love you. She's all right. Good night. Love you. Um anyways, short version is I think Microsoft came out the gate swinging. And I think
Yeah.
the Bethesda acquisition like I said in TRG earlier, and I think that was by far the most interesting move I've seen from Microsoft yet. Like
Hmm.
the $300 like Xbox Series S, I was like, that's pretty classy. I like that.
Hmm.
That's a really strong play. And I was like, but like the thing is, it is a compromised machine. It is not as powerful as the X.
Hmm.
And I think like for a lot of people who aren't sort of like in like I think the Xbox Series S is going to do well with basically people who don't really know a lot about video games, but are sort of just like, my kid wants an Xbox. And it's like that's going to like it's going to get snapped up and it's a heck of a value.
Hmm.
It's just it is a heck of a deal. Um my misgivings aside. I do, however, just like I said, and I prefer Sony's model for a
Hmm.
lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Um, just I'm not like a lot of it, and this is just personal preference. But and again, I think, and we'll see what happens. But I think that this console generation is poised to be, I think, a lot more competitive on both sides. This is
Hmm.
probably going to be a lot more like the PS3 360, console wars, quote unquote,
Yeah.
than the PS4 Xbox One.
I agree because they've differentiated themselves.
Hmm.
Whereas before, I don't think they had very. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sony has their exclusives, but I mean, there's
Well,
only a handful of Xbox exclusive. Like now they're going in much different directions.
I think
So.
okay, so and just even looking at those rate like those different like look at the PS3 360 race and the
Mhm.
PS4 and Xbox One. PS3 360, right? Comparable machines. Now the PS3 was actually much more powerful than the 360,
Right.
but that cell processor is a nightmare to code for
Ah.
apparently to deal with. Also the price point
Yeah,
was
$600.
hot garbage. Like, dude, that 599 and you're
Yeah.
gonna go get a second job to get this thing. It's like I
Yeah.
remember seeing it is a webtoon or web comic where it
Hmm.
was like it's this guy like pretending to be from Sony. He's like, and we're our newest accessory is the and I'm going. It was basically pull up and it's this gross looking sandwich, and it was like the Sony PlayStation turd sandwich. It's $500, and you're gonna buy it and like it because we told you to. And it
Yeah.
was like basically sort of like the web comic was sort of like, yeah, go pound sand.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. But
And
why
now,
don't you want to pay $650 to play Lair?
no, long
Anyways.
term, the PlayStation actually did outsell the 360,
Hmm.
and did sort of win out that market. But up front, 360
Oh, far and away.
far
Yeah.
like from the get go, the 360 took the lead. So I think that but when you look at the Xbox One and the PS4, I think really kind of what happened there was Microsoft completely misjudged the market.
Hmm.
Like they were like, you're going to be online all the time, DRM, blah 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 blah, and Sony
Yeah.
was like, like
Right.
okay,
Well, yeah. Yeah.
and the box is you're gonna have picture in picture, you're gonna be able to watch football and play Call of Duty at the same time, and everybody's
Talk to
like,
your Connect and change it if you want to. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just like, and everybody's
Won't
like,
work without a Connect.
okay. And it's like, yeah, it was like
Yeah.
all this stuff that they were sort of like forcing on you. And
Hmm.
I think in a lot of ways it was just too much too soon.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think if they were to sort of relaunch the Xbox One now, like that model now versus then, people are like, okay, like, yeah, oh, I'm gonna need a camera. Okay. Like I'm gonna need to be online all the time. Okay. Like I'm gonna have all people would be like, okay. But it
Hmm.
was like because then it's like when you look at like online connectivity and all that stuff was sort of just sort of entering the mainstream. And so I think I think honestly sort of looking at last gen, like
Hmm.
the Xbox One, PS4 gen, right? And is that like Sony really did like just I think Sony proved the thing that like in a lot of ways the Xbox One was a superior machine. Had more flops and had
Hmm.
all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, they didn't have any games. Like they didn't have any like console. It was like Halo, and it was like maybe just um
I'm not. I mean, I know Forza is a big one for them. I don't care in the least.
Well, and it's like I'm not trying like I actually really feel bad for Microsoft fans because I think in a lot of ways they just like Microsoft sort of just dropped the ball for them repeatedly. It's
Yeah.
like they never gave them anything like and I feel like there are a lot of people who are like Team Microsoft and I'm like, hey, like what you like, but I
Yeah.
honestly feel like, and yeah, there were probably lots of multiplayer games and stuff that were available. And like, that was like the optimal way to play that stuff. But at the same time, I'm like, dude, we had, The Last of Us 1, The Last of Us 2, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, Shadow of the Colossus, the Infamous games. Yeah, I freaking A. Like, there's so many stinking
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Like, yeah, it's like, dude, and it was just like, I think in a lot of ways, what this last gen really proved is that games matter and
Hmm.
exclusives matter.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of the people who are all about, and even sort of going back to like, I just want to be able to play whatever I want on whatever I want. And I'm like, that's one, that's not the market. But two, it's like nobody has to give you like, I don't know. Like, it's like, I look at that and I'm saying like, people are like, well, Spider-Man on Xbox would have played better, and I'm kind of like, yeah, but it wasn't on Xbox. So like, it's to me, it's a very sour grapes mentality
Hmm.
kind of thing where it's like, dude, like, I don't know, one, it's not that big a deal, but the other side of that is just like, in a lot of ways, like I think Sony had a better read on the market, and I think in a lot of ways Sony just understands what makes a good console. Like, and we'll see with this current gen stuff.
Hmm.
But I think even like the way that like, and here's the one thought I have on the PlayStation 5, and it's sort of a little more technical, but the basically what I love about the PlayStation 5 in theory, and because I have, is that re they sort of went back to the drawing board. They're still using the X486 or X86 architecture, whatever it is. But they were like, how can we make a smarter hard drive? And they sort of look and like there were some real innovations in tech that happened because they were sort of willing to sort of work within certain with certain restrictions and confinements. And I
Mhm.
just there's something about that that I just really I like a well-engineered thing.
Mhm.
Like I just like and this thing is engineered out the wazoo. And honestly, I'm just way more interested in like I could give a rip less about Assassin's Creed. Don't care.
Mhm.
Like you know, there's a lot of stuff where it's like this multi-platform stuff where I'm like, eh. And I think for the first time, what I think is the most interesting thing about this current gen stuff is that for the first time, Xbox has actually given me a reason to look at them.
Mhm.
Like whereas last gen, I was like, you have Ori and the Blind Forest, which came out on Switch, or I
Mhm.
could play on my laptop. Okay, like
Yeah.
you know, and I'm
Yeah.
saying like, yeah, Cuphead, like, and it's
Right.
like, which is a very cool game, but
Mhm.
at the same time, I'm just saying like,
Yeah, it's not a console seller.
yep,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
for sure.
it's you know, like, I just think like, I think like it's one of the things is for the first time in a number of years, I think Microsoft is actually sort of like they're in the game. They're playing the game by their own rules to a certain way, but they're still playing the game. Whereas I
Mhm.
think last gen, they just weren't really with it. Like
Yeah.
they were
Yeah,
trying to do a bunch of other stuff, but they weren't doing it in a way that actually appealed to anyone.
yeah. Yeah.
And this
Eh,
time, I think they're doing it in a way that appeals. That's
yeah.
all. So I know I kept interrupting, but anyways,
Oh, no, no, no. I was just gonna say, when you look back, I mean, yeah, just even reminding me of how Xbox One launched, it's actually pretty amazing at how well they ended up doing
yeah.
because it was such a botched launch.
Mm.
In so many different, like lying to people and saying this console will not work without a Connect. Like you have to buy it because it won't work without it, and like and selling it. It was called Xbox One because it was supposed to be like your one media player.
Hmm.
That's just not
Well,
the case. That's not how.
I don't know all the ins and outs, but I think the original, like the way the original software was set up, was
Mhm.
the thing would not work without a Connect.
Okay.
And then I think it was like when people were like, "We don't really care about this thing.
Mhm.
We actually kind of don't like it,"
I
and
mean,
they're
yeah, it
like,
was within like a year that they released one without a Connect
I think
because it
it
was
was like they sort of patched out the necessity
rush
that
job.
they were like, okay, like, well, this is not working great.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah. So it
so
just right, and I'm yeah, I can remember then, like the tech behind Kinect is super cool. It just was never used for anything. Sort of like some of the stuff that Nintendo does,
yeah,
but
well,
that's a whole
that's
other
you know what
conversation.
though. Here's the thing. Like, there's a lot of tech that gets like punched out, like pushed out, that is seemingly frivolous or useless, but later iterations of that same
Right.
tech actually prove to be extremely useful.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
like people like want to rip on, you know, like Waggle tech. But I'm like,
Hmm.
without Waggle, like motion control, like Nintendo basically introduced motion control,
Hmm.
and it's like, you know, now the PlayStation VR, which I'll tell you what I'm more interested in is sort of seeing the PSVR 2
Hmm.
roll out.
Yeah,
Like I want to see what upgrades sort of happen with that.
interesting,
Um,
interesting.
if it's not a wireless unit, I will be very disappointed.
You don't want like 10 wires? I have looked into this now that now that I own a PS4 and now that I own Tetris Effect. And I was like, "Oh, wow. I can see why people complain about this."
It's a setup. Like I have the
Yeah.
box, like everything's plugged in so that all I
Mhm.
have to do is basically I pull out the headset, plug it in, and like you're good to go.
Nice.
But it's even there, it's like
Yeah.
you got like this long cable that just sort of sticks out the back of your head and runs across the floor.
Yeah.
I'm going, eh.
Yeah.
It's like it's I play sitting down a lot, so
Hmm.
but
Yeah, for
if you're
sure.
standing up, it definitely like it's yeah,
It's an
it's kind of
interesting shit setup for sure.
yeah.
Um,
It's I VR is very cool, and I'm sort of
mhm.
interested in seeing what they do with that, especially since it's from what I understand, it's going to be Like basically, like it'll be plug and play with the box. It won't need all the extra peripheral crap
Oh, interesting. Okay.
because it'll
Okay.
just be like support. From what I understand, support's going to be native to the five.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
which I'm like, that's very cool.
We'll see how much they focus on it. I mean, because they haven't said anything yet. But I think that's also, I mean, going back to sort of just my overall thoughts that I've already laid out here is that and I don't want to be under any illusions. I totally get coronavirus has kind of thrown stuff off. So I get that maybe that they should have had a better launch lineup. But right now, to me, here's the thing, and here's why I'm kind of down on it, is because, and I say down on it, maybe that's too strong, but I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid, is what it is. I see a lot of people on the hype train. I mean, like after the PS5 announcement, I was watching how people were freaking out. Oh, I got a pre-order in. Oh, I didn't get my pre-order in. Am I even going to be able to have this console? Like we're selling out all this, and I'm just sitting here like, is it really worth it? Like just step back for a second. Is it really worth it to have a $500 box launch day? What is it that you're playing? What is it like? Not that I would buy it anyway. I get it. I'm not the right audience, but the value proposition for my $500-600, what am I actually getting for it? I don't understand the hype right now. Next year, hey, it's going to be better value proposition. There's going to be
Yeah.
better games out. I get that. And hey, the price could lower in a year and a half, 2 years.
I
You
think
can get a
honestly,
secondhand system. So I,
well,
I
I was just gonna say, I think honestly, if the launch library were a little, if we knew what if it had a stronger, like none of these systems really launched. Like, dude, I still remember buying my GameCube
mhm.
and having to buy, uh, and
Luigi's
I say
Mansion.
Luigi's Mansion, and I think I got a Batman game.
Okay,
That Batman game
sorry.
was not good. I played it, but it was not good.
Yeah.
Uh, but like, and Luigi's Mansion was awesome.
Hmm.
Like, I had a ton of fun with that game. But it was like, it was very much like one of those things where I was just kind of like, huh.
Yeah, because that one's like 10 or 12 hours, right? That's pretty short. It's a pretty
Uh
short game.
yeah, yeah. It's not super long.
Yeah. I mean,
And
I guess most Mario games aren't that long. Anyways.
no, but I mean, and so I would just say like the state of these consoles at launch, which, and I think in a lot of ways both of them are sort of sidestepping that issue by saying like, well, hey, you can play stuff from last year. Well, Microsoft is like, you can play anything on Game Pass, and PlayStation 5 is like, yeah, you can play most of the stuff from PS4 on
Right.
PS5 natively.
Right.
I'm like, and so in a way they are sort of sidestepping some of that, but
Yeah.
at the same time,
Yeah.
it would be nice to see them come out the gate with a much stronger library, like
Hmm.
launch day sort of titles.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So that's my 2 cents. We do also have some input from our brochachos that I wanted to just read off real quickly. I say real quickly. They had a lot of thoughts, which is awesome. Micah, he says, well, my thoughts are now massively changed with this morning's news of Microsoft buying Bethesda. This is an absolute huge move by Microsoft.
it's huge.
That is huge in all caps with a Y.
It's it
I guess
I'll tell you what. When I read that this morning, I was like, I like most.
Microsoft has the best deals. Sorry.
Microsoft has the best games. Uh, but like when I read any sort of like games media stuff, most of the time,
Yeah.
like barely an eyebrow raises, and I'm like,
Hmm.
eh.
Yeah.
I think I got a full on like both eyebrows. I was like, oh, oh my,
Yeah.
that is very interesting.
That's a huge get. Yeah, and Micah says, I guess I'd like you guys take on that spicy piece of beef. And yeah, I agree. The other thing that threw me for a loop is it was $7.5 billion for ZeniMax.
But dude, so going forward though, like they have like basically all of the Elder Scrolls, like all of
Right.
those properties, Prey, Dishonored, the Elder Scrolls, Doom, Rage, whatever, whatever else like Bethesda. So I'm trying to think what else they've done that I could name off the top. But they have all of this property, so all of the residuals, so every copy of Skyrim that gets installed on a freaking refrigerator from here on
Mm-hmm.
out,
Yeah.
Microsoft is getting a cut of that. Um, so there is that. I mean, oh, Fallout, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right. Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
so it's like all of that stuff is like,
Wolfenstein.
well, yeah, yeah, yeah. That is published by the Bethesda. That's Machine Games.
Right. Yep. Yep.
Uh, but anyway, all I'm saying is like that is, and I guess like Dishonored is Arcane, or is it Arcane? What is that? What is that developer called? I want to
Yeah,
say
it
it's
is Arcane.
Arcane.
It is Arcane.
Okay,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Prey is Arcane too,
Yeah,
right?
they're out of Austin, Texas. That's crazy.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, well,
The
dude,
more
you
you
need to listen to Masters
know.
of Doom because, yeah, Carmack and Romero, basically moved to Texas at one point in time to make games, like, and
Nice.
had anyways,
Yeah.
neither here nor there. But
Yeah.
so that one, just in response, and we've already sort of talked about it,
Hmm.
but like that is sing. I honestly don't see them remaining exclusive for too long.
I agree.
Um, just because it's like they would be cutting their market,
Hmm.
and Doom. I mean, Doom is a huge seller. Uh, all that stuff. Like, yeah, I think in a lot of ways, what it's really going to do is optimize their profit margins on those things when they sell on their console.
Yeah.
But it's like everywhere else, they're just be like, yeah, take your cut.
Well, yeah,
Like,
it's like you said, Skyrim is, I mean, it's on everything.
yeah,
Skyrim runs on a potato. What, it's in Tesla, right? No, that's Cuphead. Never mind. So, it's
yeah,
just
but
literally
they
on
have
everything.
stakes
It's
in
on
that
everything.
too.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. No, I agree. I don't think it's going to be exclusive. Like you said, like you started off saying, I
I mean,
do think it's
Cuphead came to
mostly going to be
PlayStation.
timed exclusives. Yeah, yeah, I think it'll be along those lines. Is they will ride the wave of the initial 6 months or so of like you can get this game, don't announce that it's coming to everything else, and then kind of trickle it out to other systems and make more money on the back end when it does that. But like the hype will be get this game on Xbox,
If you
on
want to
an
play it
Xbox
day
machine.
one, it's going to be
Right.
on an
And it's
Xbox.
going to be on Game Pass. So get yourself that. And they're playing kind of a long game here. But total. I mean, just the fact that Xbox releases their stuff on Switch, or excuse me, that Microsoft releases some of their games on Switch. I don't see them cutting that off because
No,
for
no.
for the most part, like Microsoft and Nintendo have been on good terms with each other. It's kind of PlayStation and Microsoft that kind of volley at each other occasionally. And honestly, it's more from Sony's side because Xbox PR is very friendly, which is interesting.
Well,
Um,
I think it's Xbox's PR just in general, and this is what I'll say, is when the 360 was dominant, and somebody got, and years ago, this came up in TRG, but
mm,
somebody brought up like about how like it was when all the Fortnite stuff was going on, and Sony was like, yeah, we're not going to really play nice, and everybody's like,
yeah, hmm,
screeching about that, which I'm
right.
just like, roll my eyes. Um, but they ended up winning out, and that's fine. But it was just like it was just such a dumb thing to get worked up over to begin with. But when somebody was talking about like, well, Sony won't do it, blah 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 blah, blah, and I was like, Microsoft would, it's like I remember back in the 360 era where Sony was asking Microsoft to open up some like crossplay stuff, and Microsoft was like, no.
Huh.
So because it wasn't advantageous for them, like
Yeah.
it didn't, like they didn't need to, so they didn't. And it's like,
Hmm.
but everybody wants to forget about that. And so what it is like, well, right now, and this is the thing.
Yeah, it's true. It could be how it is.
It's like just my sort of hot take on it it's a lot easier for them to play nice and be consumer friendly when they've had to be humble.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when they have
Hmm.
to sort of appease the customer in order to like it's like Nintendo back in the day in the Nintendo Super Nintendo era.
Hmm.
Nintendo told you what was going to happen,
Right.
and you were
Right.
just
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
you,
You want
you
our
know
cartridges, then you're gonna have to. Yeah. Totally.
exactly. And it's like and right now Sony's the big dog, and so I think like especially like we saw it, PS2 into the PS3, 599. You're
Hmm.
gonna eat this turd sandwich and like it, and blah blah blah. And you're gonna work two jobs and like sell off your kidneys and mortgage your home and whatever else stupid crap they said. They didn't say half of that, but they
Final
did say
Fantasy
you're gonna.
13.
Yeah. Oh, ugh. The game that takes 40 hours to get good. Um, but you know, there is this idea where when you are not the winner or you're not winning,
Hmm.
you have to sort of be a little
Yeah.
more competitive. And so my hope is that
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, like Microsoft sort of hits at Sony and forces them because I feel like when when now there are certain freedoms that when you're sort of like the big dog, there are chances that like there are things that you can do and risks you can take that you can sort of absorb because you're sort of on top.
Hmm.
But on the other side, when you have to compete and when sort of like the competition is breathing down your neck or when you're fighting to sort of like get a spot, like you have to be innovative, you have to be competitive, you have to
Yeah.
be and honestly, I think that's better for everyone.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're going to be looking for ways to bring the best possible service to their customer base.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
want to
That
see I want to see
that's a
both
good
of
take.
them sort of get their wings clipped. That's it.
Yep.
So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. When you're down, that's when you go for it for sure. Yeah, that's a good take. I hadn't read it that way, but that's a really good point for how kind of Microsoft has been lately. So hopefully they keep it up, but we'll see. I mean, yeah, yeah. Lord knows Nintendo has had to eat their humble pie with a lot of when they're on top of the world and then they
oh dude, well,
crash
I mean just look at like I
the
mean
whole
like
console cycle of the Wii U. I
well, I
love
was
my
gonna
Wii,
say
don't get me
I,
wrong.
I love my Wii U, but it's like Nintendo sort of misreads the market often.
Yeah.
64, uh,
Yeah.
the GameCube,
Yeah.
the Wii U was basically like the reason that thing sold so well is because it was just a casual machine, and it was like that
The
blue
the
ocean
Wii?
of the Wii.
The Wii. Yeah, not the Wii U.
The
It's
no,
like
oh,
sold
did I
so
say the
well.
Wii
No.
U?
Yeah.
Oh, the Wii U sold like trash because nobody knew what to do with it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because they just come off
Nobody,
the Wii and they're like, we'll release something else and
dude.
everyone will love it and no one loved it.
And
So
the marketing for that, just to
yeah.
back, the marketing for the Wii U was atrocious.
Yeah. Well, and
Like
they had poured so much into like, hey, there's this tablet controller, and by that time, like everyone had tablets and everyone had phones, and it's just like, okay, big deal.
the other
We
thing
don't
though
need
too
this.
is like there were a lot of people who were under the impression that all you needed it was like basically an upgrade.
Right. Yeah.
Like it was
Tablet
just like
upgrade.
you could get this thing and it would work with your existing Wii. And it's like, no, this is a whole new system.
Yep.
And
It's just horribly named.
this
That's all. That's all.
unfortunate. Going back to that, like console
Stupid name.
manufacturers and the naming conventions are awful.
That may possibly be the height of stupidity when it comes to naming consoles. Yeah, I mean,
No, dude. No, dude. All of Microsoft's naming convention
oh,
is
that's true. That's true.
far,
And
far worse.
the problem, this is a whole other rabbit hole, but I'd say the problem with Microsoft is it's consistently bad. Like they just don't know how to name a good console. Like even okay, I'll give you the original Xbox for DirectX, but even 360 is like, wait, you're turning around? What's going on here?
It's
And
not.
then
It's not.
one
It's
is
not
the
even
worst.
turning it around. It's you're doing a circle.
That's right. Yes, you're right. You're right. Yeah, it's not a 180, it's a 360. Hello. Yeah. So
It's just it's like
you're
you just
spinning your wheels. I don't
you're
get it.
just spinning in place.
Yeah.
I don't
Uh-huh.
understand.
And then one for your third console is
But
stupid.
it's like
And then throwing an X at the end of that is even dumber. And then series, just throwing series in the middle of that instead of a one is just like, what are you even do? Like, are you drunk? What is going on here?
they
I don't know.
might have been. They
Yeah,
might have been.
quite possibly. Okay, so to get back to what Micah was saying,
Yeah,
sorry,
sorry,
now that
sorry.
we no, it's fine. We're both just that way. Okay, so we talked about that spicy piece of beef. Other than that, just tell us what you like and don't like about what you've seen from each camp. I hopefully in the past hour and a half we've done that. If we're talking value proposition, I'd argue that this generation is more valuable than any recent one. Consider that we have a $300 and $400 model in which to dive in. Those are fantastic prices. The
Mm,
PS4 launched at 400 and everyone hailed it as a great price back in 2013. So 400 definitely holds up as a great price. Secondly, consider the launch titles for both. Xbox easily beats any launch they've ever had thanks to Game Pass. So that
yeah.
leaves Sony. Miles Morales and Demon Souls alone is better than the entire PS4 or PS3 launch lineup. And Astrobot is baked into every console. I'll still be
Yes.
getting a PlayStation, obviously. Already snagged that digital edition pre-order. Hey man, I'm not and just to reiterate, I'm not saying that Miles Morales or Demon Souls are bad games in and of themselves. I'm saying that you can play them on other consoles, and so it doesn't excite me for a next gen. It doesn't feel next generation enough to me because you can play them on other consoles. That's all that I'm saying. Um,
I think for me the Ratchet, like, one of the things is what's the actual window on Ratchet and Clank, because that could be
I can't remember.
if that's coming like fairly, that might be like, because dude, that game looks real good, and that's actually like a beloved series.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
mm.
I've never played a Ratchet and Clank game, so I don't have any of those ties. I mean, maybe if they made like a Knack 3, that'd be pretty cool,
The
but you know,
masterpiece.
kidding. Just kidding. So
Yeah.
and then we did also have Wes
Mhm.
chime in here. He says, while the value propositions might not be amazing, I think Microsoft taking that step to allow financing of their machines is a genius move. $25 a month for 2 years to get access to 100 plus games on their service and a brand new console. To me, a gamer who's never really owned an Xbox system, that sounds incredibly fair when I haven't played 90% of that library anyway. I do wish that the digital PS5 was priced a bit lower because I was ready to be all in on that. But seeing how competitive Microsoft is being with their pricing system, I'm actually going to wait on the PS5 for now. This will give me a chance to get out of my normal comfort zone, and since the games I was hoping to play on the PS5 sound like they'll also be on the PS4, I'm going to give it a year until some more solid PS5 exclusives come out. Until then, I'm just going to sit here and play my Mario Collectathon games on the Switch. Wink emoji. I liked that. That was a good one. That was a good one, Wes. That was a good
Well, that
one.
I'll tell you what, he hurt my heart at the end talking about the collectathon nonsense.
Oh no, I mean, like what you like, man. I'm glad that he enjoys those games. They're not my favorite, but even if, I mean, we talked about this. We talked about
Yeah.
this on the last Brohang. Is that like, does Mario count? Because they sort of are, but I still enjoy them. So it's just this weird thing in my brain of like, if you're truly, but also I don't play Mario games like collectathons. So that's a whole other thing. I just don't collect everything in those games. But by and large, my thoughts are very similar to Wes, except I'm not jumping on anything
Yeah.
right now. But I agree that hey, the um, the games that are announced, the big games for PS5, at least that I'm interested in, are also coming to PS4. That could change. The whole landscape could change next year. I'm saying right now, I don't understand the hype. That's my
Mm.
personal opinion. And then what he said about Xbox being a great value. I completely agree. It is a very good value. It's just not the way that I want to play my games. And I know, like, it would literally stress me out to know that I'm paying for games that I'm not playing, and when I already have a ton of games that I'm not playing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that whole subscription model sort of like, I'm not a fan. Like,
right,
yeah, no. There's
right.
something
It
about it
is a
that
good
just
model. It's not for me.
well, I'm not sure that it's even a good model. I'm just
Okay.
saying, like,
Okay.
I'm just like, there's something about it that just sort of like, I understand the appeal,
Mhm.
I'm just saying, like, it's just really not for me.
So it reminds me of the types of people who buy a game, play the game, sell it back to GameStop, and buy a new game for $20 and
Yeah.
continuously do that. That's what it feels like to me. So for that type of gamer, I think it's a great deal.
Yeah.
That is not the type of gamer I am or ever have been. I hold on to my stuff. Some may say I am a hoarder.
Well, and I think too, though, that that sort of chewing through, you and I, neither one of us is exactly like sort of, we get on hype trains from time to time, but for
Mhm.
the most part, like, we tend to sort of like fanboy in different ways.
Yeah.
And so that whole like cycle where it's you buy the game, play it, beat it, trade it in, buy, trade it in for $30,
Mhm.
buy a new game. Like, that cycle, to me, while it's understandable, that's just not how I play games, period.
Right.
Like, I tend to be a lot slower. Like,
Mhm.
when I get into a game, I just drill down
Mhm.
until
Mhm.
like, so I'm just kind of like, yeah, yeah, it's like that. But the other thing is, I just don't play nearly as much as I used to either.
Yeah.
So
Right.
there's that.
Right. Yeah. That's another. Right. Yeah. Being a teenager right now and having access to Game Pass, I mean, like that would have blown my flipping mind back when
Yeah.
I just had a Super Nintendo. But, anyways, those are our thoughts on next gen. Do you have any final parting thoughts? I think I've said my thoughts like 4 times already, so I'm done.
I think what I would do is echo the just sort of that thought that I shared in TRG earlier, though.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a really interesting time to be, to look at, the to be a gamer, quote unquote. Um, but I would encourage anybody listening to this, be conscientious. Like,
Mm-hmm.
actually, be smart. Like, this is the first gen where I've been really kind of like interested in owning an Xbox again. Like, I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go, but it's like this is the first time in years. Um, and just, brief history. Uh, I owned a PlayStation, an OG Xbox, and a GameCube all
Mm-hmm.
in the same. Like, I owned all three, and I owned a PS2, and so it's like, and I had a 360 and all that, and I basically owned everything for a while. I didn't own a Wii. Never owned a Wii. No, that's not true. I owned a Wii for like a week, and then
A
like
week.
a week,
Nintendo week.
my Nintendo week. Uh, wah wah wah, and then I was just kind of like,
I
yeah,
like it.
not
I
really.
like it.
Um, but lately, I kind of got out of gaming for a while, and like, I had a 360, um, and then I ended up trading it, and that was like my primary machine, and then I ended up trading that in and getting the PS3, and then I from PS3 into PS4, and then switch and everything. But this is the first time, like, in a probably 10 to 15-year gap where I'm like, actually, like, you know what? Maybe this current gen, if I can make the numbers work and stuff, I'll eventually own everything. But I'm not. I'm also like, there's a part of me, like, and just when it comes to a sort of a parting shot at Microsoft, is like, the problem with me is that I can build a PC
Mm-hmm.
and I'll have access to all, like, I can buy those games through the Microsoft store or whatever,
Yeah.
and run them better than that Series X can run them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. But I guess I just, like, in looking at all of this, I just would encourage anybody in general, but believers in particular, to be conscientious, be thoughtful, be mindful about how you're spending your money, how you're spending your time here. This is an opportunity for us to sort of, in a very low stakes way, sort of flex some discipline, flex some conscientiousness, like exercise some wisdom and just thoughtfulness. And so I'm just saying, like, do that, like, and maybe ask some questions and say, do I really need this thing day one? And hey, listen, you want it, and you've got the cash. That's fine. That's whatever. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I think it is always good to sort of ask questions of these things and sort of like, you know, push at this a little bit and push it at sort of our foregone conclusions, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I agree. We're both old men. We have other
dude, somebody called
considerations,
me.
just the
Somebody
hype
called
train.
me. I was called Uncle Nate and then Grandpa,
Grandpa Nate.
and I was just like, I was like, and of course it was, I was like, I just kind of like laugh reacted
Mhm.
but I was just like, oh, I'm not old. Is it me who's out of touch? No, no, it's the
The
children.
children.
The children are out of touch.
Right, exactly. All those that are gonna be spending their parents' money on a new console. Uh, no, I'm just kidding.
Oh, or their rent.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who ever did that. As I sort of like look directly in the mirror and say like, no, I know a guy who did that. I am a guy who did that once.
Ouch. All right. Okay, well, I dig it. I think that is a good wrap on our next gen talk.
The beefy
Only took
brohang.
us, yeah, it only took us an hour and a half.
I think instead of
There you go.
calling this one a bite size, you ought to call it like a breakout brohang or something.
Yeah, I like it. I
Something,
like it.
just a
Family
little.
size.
Yeah, this is like feed all them chillins.
on
This
on
is this
our
is like the $20 the
crappy
the
hot take.
20 taco box.
Yeah, there you go. If they haven't discontinued it, we certainly haven't.
But all
Dig it.
right, let's yeah.
I'm gonna hit stop. I'm gonna have to change locations as well. Dun 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 dun. I was up here in my bedroom, and I'm gonna have to go down to the kitchen.
Brohang.
Boom.